They were some of Marvel's biggest names, trusted with major heroes and blockbuster storylines. But behind the scenes, fights with editors, creative clashes, and impossible deadlines pushed them too far. Some writers walked out mid-arc, leaving cliffhangers unresolved. Others abandoned entire crossover events, forcing Marvel to scramble for replacements. Fans turned the page expecting answers, and instead got sudden rewrites, rushed conclusions, or silence. So, which writers quit Marvel mid-story, and which comics were left unfinished? Here are 10 times Marvel writers walked out, leaving stories behind. At point 10, we have Steve Ditko. In the early 1960s, Marvel introduced a new kind of hero, Spider-Man, with the help of Steve Ditko. Steve, alongside Stan Lee, co-created Spider-Man and gave life to Peter Parker's world. From Amazing Spider-Man issue 1 through 38, Ditko not only drew the panels, but also shaped the stories, plotting many of the arcs himself. He built the Rogues Gallery with villains like Dr. Octopus and the Green Goblin, and introduced characters who became central to Peter's life, from Gwen Stacy to Harry Osborn. Ditko's work was meticulous, with plots unfolding slowly across months, pulling readers deeper with every issue. But behind the scenes, tensions were rising. By 1966, disputes over credit and creative direction reached a breaking point. Ditko abruptly left, leaving his subplots unresolved. With his departure after issue 38, John Romita Sr. stepped in, revealing Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin and taking the series in a new, more dramatic direction. Ditko's walkout forever changed Spider-Man's path. At point 9, we have Chris Claremont. In 1975, Chris Claremont stepped into the pages of Uncanny X-Men and began what would become a 16-year journey that redefined the series and reshaped Marvel Comics itself. Through his writing, the X-Men were transformed from a struggling title into Marvel's top property. He introduced unforgettable figures like Phoenix, Mystique, Emma Frost, and Gambit, and crafted long, intertwining storylines that played out over years. Jean Grey's descent into corruption, Magneto's evolution from villain to complex rival, and the political battles surrounding mutantkind were all part of Claremont's layered vision. But in 1991, as Marvel prepared to launch a new X-Men title with artist Jim Lee, control of the storytelling was shifted away from him. Feeling stripped of creative influence, Claremont walked away after his final input on page 12 of Uncanny X-Men issue 279. His departure left many arcs unfinished, and other writers stepped in, redirecting the saga while his seeds of story were left unresolved. At point 8, we have John Byrne. In 1989, John Byrne stepped onto West Coast Avengers with issue 42, immediately reshaping the series and even renaming it Avengers West Coast. From the very start, Byrne tore into the foundations of the team. He dismantled the Vision, stripping him of his humanity, and redefined Scarlet Witch in ways that shocked readers. Wanda's children, long a part of her identity, were revealed as magical constructs, leading the story toward a devastating unraveling. Byrne was building momentum for a bold and darker saga called Darker Than Scarlet, where Immortus would corrupt Scarlet Witch on a cosmic scale. Yet the story was cut short. Byrne clashed with editorial, who halted his plans, and in frustration he left abruptly after issue 57. His departure left the arc suspended. Roy and Dan Thomas took over, rewriting the ending, restoring Wanda, and moving the Avengers forward in a different direction. Byrne's exit forever altered Scarlet Witch's trajectory and left readers with a story reshaped midstream. At point 7, we have Steve Englehart. In 1987, Steve Englehart began writing Silver Surfer Volume 3, launching the series with a vision to finally free the Surfer from Earth's confines. Across the first 31 issues, he transformed the character into a true cosmic wanderer, weaving him into sweeping galactic conflicts involving Galactus, the Kree, the Skrulls, and even Mephisto. Under Englehart's pen, the Surfer became central to Marvel's space opera, navigating vast political struggles and moral questions among the stars. Readers followed ongoing subplots that balanced romance, philosophy, and interstellar intrigue, promising arcs that stretched far beyond the usual hero versus villain formula. Yet after issue 31, his run came to an abrupt halt. Editorial instructed him to wrap up his stories, clearing the stage for Jim Starlin to reposition the Surfer as a key player in the coming Infinity Gauntlet saga. Englehart later admitted he was simply told to be gone. His departure meant long-running threads were abandoned, replaced overnight by event-driven storytelling. At point 6, we have Peter David. In 1991, Peter David took the reins of X Factor beginning with issue 70. The original 5 X-Men had departed, and David introduced a completely new dynamic by reimagining the team as a government-sponsored strike force. Led by Havoc, with Polaris and Strong Guy among its ranks, the series quickly stood apart from other mutant titles. David gave the book a witty, character-driven voice, focusing on satire of bureaucracy, awkward romances, and the struggles of identity within the team. His long-range plans promised to build relationships and commentary that were rare in the fast-paced world of the X-Men line. Yet after only 2 years, the run was cut short. David grew frustrated with constant interference, especially Marvel's insistence on inserting crossovers that derailed his plots. When his scripts were altered, he decided to leave. By 1993, David was gone, his stories unfinished. Later, writers continued the series, but his distinctive voice was lost, and many of his carefully planted seeds were left unresolved. At point 5, we have Kevin Smith. In the late 1990s, Kevin Smith made his Marvel debut with Daredevil, Guardian Devil, an 8-issue story that left a strong impression. On the strength of that success, he was invited back for a high-profile sequel miniseries. In November 2002, Daredevil or Bullseye, the Target launched with Glenn Fabry on art. The opening issue set the stage for an intense confrontation, teasing Bullseye's calculated revenge and leaving readers guessing at the shocking mystery surrounding his intended target. But the story never progressed beyond that first chapter. Smith later explained that he had rushed the issue to publication mainly to use Bullseye, before Brian Michael Bendis incorporated him into his own acclaimed run. Soon after, Hollywood projects consumed Smith's focus, and his interest in completing the comic waned. As a result, only 1 issue ever appeared, and the series was quietly abandoned. Years later, Smith revealed that the target was Captain America, but the full tale remained untold, becoming one of Marvel's most infamous unfinished projects. At point 4, we have Donny Cates. In 2020, Donny Cates launched Thor Volume 6 with artist Nick Klein, bringing a fresh and powerful vision to the God of Thunder's mythology. His very first storyline, The Devourer King, shocked readers by making Thor the Herald of Galactus, forcing him into uneasy service before eventually defeating the World Devourer. Cates then unveiled the Black Winter, a cosmic threat that loomed over all creation, and began weaving mysteries around Mjolnir itself, portraying the hammer as a weapon with its own will. His run was set up as the beginning of a long and ambitious saga that would redefine Thor's place in Marvel's universe. But in late 2022, tragedy struck behind the scenes. After a serious car accident and ongoing health struggles, Cates stepped away from the series. Marvel announced that Torunn Grunbeck would carry the torch from issue 29. She brought Thor into Legacy of Thanos and wrapped up certain arcs. But several of Cates' threads were left unfinished, cutting short his grand design for Asgard's king. At point 3, we have Matt Fraction. In 2013, Marvel announced Matt Fraction as the writer who would lead a bold new era for the Inhumans, with the project positioned as one of the company's flagship titles after the Infinity crossover. Fraction developed an ambitious plan to spotlight the royal family while introducing a wave of newly transformed characters, called New Humans, who emerged after Terrigen spread across Earth. His outlines and initial scripts aim to expand the mythology, shifting the Inhumans from a hidden society into a global force at the center of Marvel's universe. But before the series even reached print, creative tensions behind the scenes brought the project to a halt. Disagreements over the tone and direction of the story caused Marvel and Fraction to part ways. Though he had already prepared material, it was set aside and never used. In 2014, Charles Soule took over the series, launching Inhuman and redefining the concept in his own way. Fraction's vision, however, disappeared completely, leaving fans to wonder what his untold version might have looked like. At point 2, we have Steve Gerber. In 1976, Steve Gerber introduced readers to a most unlikely Marvel headliner when Howard the Duck received his own series. Gerber's writing turned the cigar-smoking duck into a cult phenomenon, using sharp satire to lampoon American politics, consumerism, and media culture. Within just a few years, Howard became a household name, even running in a tongue-in-cheek presidential campaign that captured national attention. But behind the biting humor and surreal storytelling, Gerber's clashes with Marvel grew. By 1978, his habit of missing deadlines combined with disputes over ownership and royalties brought him into conflict with management. The breaking point came with Howard the Duck issue 27, when Marvel removed him from the title. After his departure, writers like Bill Mantlo and Marv Wolfman attempted to continue Howard's adventures. Without Gerber's distinctive voice, the series quickly lost momentum. Marvel shifted Howard into a black and white magazine, but it too faltered and was eventually canceled, leaving Gerber's signature arcs unfinished and the character's original edge diminished. And at point 1, we have John Ney Rieber. In 2002, Marvel launched a new Captain America series in the wake of the September 11th attacks, handing the title to writer John Ney Rieber with John Cassaday on art. From the very first issue, Rieber steered Captain America into uncharted territory, addressing terrorism, national security, and the uncertainty of a shaken America. His opening arc, The New Deal, followed Steve Rogers as he grappled not only with external threats, but also with the moral weight of representing a nation in crisis. Rieber built momentum for 2 follow-up arcs, The Extremists and Ice, pushing Captain America further into stories of surveillance, extremism, and geopolitics. But midway through these arcs, his time on the book ended abruptly. Disagreements with editorial direction and outside commitments pulled him away before he could finish what he had set in motion. Later, writers like Robert Morales and Christopher Priest took Captain America down other paths, while Rieber's planned vision was cut short. Marvel's greatest legends weren't just built on heroes, but on the stories writers never finished. Which lost tale haunts you most? Press the subscribe button and bell icon for regular updates.